I've heard it said that anger is the most motivating emotion, and that certainly seems to be the case here in terms of what motivates me to make videos. So I randomly stumbled on this article because I'll tell you how I stumbled on it. I was on a laptop that was not mine, and I had some time to kill while I was using a 3D printer. Don't ask. And I opened up Microsoft Edge, and the default new tab is the MSN home screen with a little news panel with news stories that you can kind of click through. So while I was killing some time, I just clicked through the 8 or so stories that were there from various news sources advertised by MSN News. And this was one of them. I can't believe it, because this isn't even on the homepage of The Independent or on their Twitter page or anything, but it was on the MSN homepage. I read the whole thing, and honestly, from start to finish, this is a terrible article. It's really extremely dishonest, very lazy. I just wanted to go through all of it, because there's a lot to say on all of these subjects, and also just to say about how this is written and about the absolute state of British journalism. Also worth mentioning is that the Independent, which is the source of this article, were recently caught out. Carl Rittenhouse shot 2 men, and so he shot at 3 men, and 2 of them died. The Independent published that it was 3 black men, when in fact they were not black men. They were white men, white complexion, and they were Black Lives Matters protesters, which is how people got this common misconception that Carl Rittenhouse shot at 3 black men. But the Independent actually published it, and it took them a few minutes to change it back to say the actual truth. So it's not looking good for the Independent. Anyway, this is further like that was just a mistake. That was like one. It takes two points to make a line, and this is the second point, and the line that it's forming is Independent, not a very reliable news source, and probably we'd be better off in Britain without without news sources like this publishing things that are simply not true. Let's just get into it. Candace Owens, I've talked about her before a long time ago on this channel. I'm not a particular fan, but I don't have anything against her either, for the record. Candace Owens has been condemned online and accused of verbal gymnastics after she alleged that Black Americans were the country's most murderous group. Notice Black Americans, Americans needs a capital letter. Black is capitalized as well. That's an editorial choice. That's a style guide that the Independent will give to its journalists to make sure they all follow the same sort of grammatical style. I've mentioned before when analysing articles that the rule of thumb in journalism, in writing in general, but especially in writing articles, is that the top information, the information located at the top of the article, particularly the headline, the subheading, and but also the first paragraph, etc. All the most important information needs to be headlined. It needs to be front-loaded. So the point you're trying to get across, it really needs to be there in the first paragraph, with the rest of the details becoming increasingly irrelevant, filling in the gaps. But the bones of the article really need to be fleshed out. I'm mixing metaphors there. The most important things in the article need to be at the top and becoming less important as you go down. Keep that in mind. She's alleged that Black Americans were the country's most murderous group. The far-right commentator was speaking on Tucker Carlson tonight when she said Democrats had downplayed the arrest of a black man, 39-year-old Darrell Brooks, for the deadly attack on a Wisconsin Christmas parade last week. So a lot of people published this as a car hitting pedestrians rather than saying that it was somebody driving in, for instance. That's what she was talking about. Miss Owens also downplayed the deaths of George Floyd and the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse as issues of racial injustice, and alleged that Black Americans are the most murderous group in America by rate. Her remarks were widely condemned by Twitter users on Tuesday, with sports journalist and... Okay, this is where the article really falls apart. What is the story here? The story is not that Candace Owens said this on Fox News, on Tucker Carlson Tonight. The story, if you read the headline, she's been condemned. This is the active part of the sentence. Candace Owens has been condemned after alleging Black Americans, etc. So this is the actual story, is the backlash. What people said about Candace Owens is the active part of this story. Yes, Andreas Hale said, watch in awe the gerbil gymnastics of Owens saying George Floyd wasn't about race because the cop didn't use a racial slur while murdering him, to the pivot of Black Americans are the most murderous group in America. She better hope God is in blackface. I don't know what that means. I don't know why this is relevant. Why is this the first... This is so high up in the article. I don't know who Andreas Hale is. A sports journalist. Why is that important? They've gone on Twitter and found... Here we go. You can see the tweet here for Andreas. A verified checkmark, which means that not only are you verified on Twitter, it means that your opinions are so important that they can be published as news. You being outraged at something is news. It goes on. Dumerica, that's the handle of Rick Rosner, a man who has the world's second highest IQ, allegedly. He described Miss Owens as sleazy and one of many evil grifters preaching at couch brains and gullibles. This very, very smart man says that people who listen to Candace Owens are couch brains and gullibles, which is, I guess, a very high IQ way of saying dumb people. What we're seeing here is just evil, pure evil. Charles Johnson, an American blogger and former jazz guitarist. None of these people are relevant experts in this subject. None of these opinions matter, as far as I'm concerned. The admonishment of the 32-year-old came after she told Mr. Carlson that the left can pull a racist narrative from thin air where it doesn't exist. When it is in their face, they try to avoid it. The left, that is. That was her point, is that the mainstream narrative about George Floyd's death and about the Kyle Rittenhouse shootings was that they were spun into a racist narrative where there was really no evidence to support that Derek Chauvin or Kyle Rittenhouse were racist. She continues, especially when a perpetrator is a black... They've capitalized black even when Candace Owens is speaking. They've put that into her mouth. They've sort of presumed grammar there. I wouldn't be happy with people doing that. Especially when a perpetrator is black person against another white person, which is obviously happens more often in this country, because black people are the most murderous group in America by rate, Miss Owens said. This is the kind of the heart of the article. This is the quote that people got, I guess, most upset about. And then we come to what I think is what should be the most important part of the article. This is whether or not what Candace Owens said was true. I don't want to say that what she said was true. So for the sake of keeping my YouTube channel, let's just not look into it. Anyway, let's just read what this is the worst part of the article when it should be the most important part. The claim has been disputed by FBI figures from 2017 showing how most homicides in the US are interracial. What does that have to do with her case? I also don't think that's true. I don't think most homicides in the US are interracial. I believe that most homicides are inter-community, meaning that you get people killing other members of their family, people they live near, and that ends up being, you get white people killing white people and you get black people killing black people. Then I believe this is actually untrue. But it's in The Independent, so I guess it has to be true. regardless, let's just say it is true, and most homicides in the US are interracial. What does that? I've read this sentence so many times trying to figure out if I'm going crazy. What does that have to do with Candace Owens's statements, her claims? When a perpetrator is a black person and victim's white, which obviously happens more in this country because black people are the most murderous group in America. And then to counter that, we've got... I don't know. I can only keep reading it and asking, how are these things related? If it's been disputed, if she's incorrect, then you'd expect the claim in this sentence to say, no, black people do not kill white people, and most white people are killed by other white people, which I believe is the truth. That if you break it down by, if you click on this, actually, I'll do it. Yeah, there's a lot more here to go into. This is slightly better written than the article we were just looking at. I don't want to get too distracted. We also have capitalized blacks here. White not capitalized. White murder victims are killed by blacks, not black people, but blacks with a capital B. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. If you'll allow me to go on a tangent, I did read this, and this is a fascinating phenomenon that I've seen more of recently, where we have a fact check, we have a claim made about data, and we have a page on the internet dedicated to debunking that claim, to fact checking that, showing you where the statistics come from that disprove the commonly made claim. The thing is that this is not, let's just say this is not the most commonly cited FBI crime statistic. This is a much rarer statistic that you see discussed online. But this one's easier to debunk. This one's easier to prove wrong or to shed doubt on. So what you do is they published a fact check on this claim, and they can say this is pants on fire, not true, not supported by evidence. While the most widely shared FBI statistic is left undebunked. That's not addressed at all, because all you need, if you're trying to argue with someone who's talking about the statistics, all you need is one example of where the figures have been misconstrued, or one lie, and you can feel good about yourself that that person doesn't know what they're talking about because they used this incorrect statistic, they misinterpreted the statistic. In Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind, he calls it the difference between must I believe it and can I believe it. There are things that we want to believe, and there are things that we do not want to believe. And when looking for evidence to support these things, you often only need one thing to support a belief you want to hold about how you want the world to be. If you're looking for evidence, you'll be satisfied when you find one piece of evidence. And when you're trying to disprove something that you do not want to believe, you'd rather not believe the world works that way, or it goes against your already held positions, you become like a super genius debunker, where you'll furiously look everywhere you can to find something that disproves it. You'll become an expert in disproving the things you do not want to be true. Whereas otherwise, it doesn't take much reassurance to confirm what you already believe. That's what I think is happening with these fact-checking sites, where if they can poke one hole in their opponent's argument, then everyone gets to go home feeling happy. That's good enough. That's good enough for everyone involved. They can all feel good about how dishonest their opponents are, and none of the facts that they give are relevant. So that's the case here. I'm not going to go into all of this. Suffice it to say that no claims about groups or populations, none of it makes sense if you don't know what per capita means, by rate, as Candace Owens says. The per capita it's not the only thing you need to know, but it's the absolute most basic level of understanding that you need to understand any demographic statistics. And when you're looking at which murders occur more, white against black or black against white, which per capita do you have to look at? Do you need to look at the per capita of the victim or per capita of the assailant, of the murderer? This makes a massive difference depending on how you break down that statistic, whether it's per capita of the murderer or per capita of the victim. Makes a huge difference because those populations are massively of different sizes. And everything I'm saying is relevant to the US, by the way, not so much in the UK. I don't want to get too off track, so I'm going to go back to the main article. Yeah, so this is that part of the article I was talking about where they actually link to those FBI figures. And by the way, that's not, that link is misleading. The fact that that is a link makes it seem like this claim is backed up and that this is a factual claim that's backed up by FBI figures. But this is not the FBI figures website. This is not FBIfigures.com. This is a fact-checking website about a particular claim. So this has been disputed by the FBI figures from 2017, showing how most homicides in the US are interracial. Nor does the claim consider the fact that black Americans are incarcerated at higher rates than their white counterparts. Irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. Not only does this sentence have nothing to do with the first sentence in this paragraph, it has nothing to do with the rest of the article at all. Yeah, it's literally true that the claim doesn't consider the fact that black American, but there's absolutely no reason that Candace Owens would need to address this about being incarcerated. This is not about. This claim has nothing to do with the incarceration rates. This is about who is committing murders. Murders are not like, drug offences or shoplifting where police can either choose to arrest or to press charges or whatever. People who commit murders, they are usually incarcerated or they are at very least charged with murder. White people are not secretly killing people and then getting away with it, or they're just being let go by the police because the police are so racist they'll just let white people off the hook. Unless you're talking about things like Carl Rittenhouse, who, killing in self-defense. So I guess that's a point you could make, is that he was not incarcerated and therefore white people can get away with murder. I think that would be a very dishonest explanation of what's going on, but regardless, it's absolutely irrelevant to the claim. So I just want to be clear, this is the only paragraph, and it's 2 sentences, it's not a very long paragraph. This is the only paragraph that even makes an attempt at looking at statistics, at analysing the claims that were made factually. The rest of this has been a little bit of flavour about Candace Owens and mostly just going through what people on Twitter had to say about it. So here we go. We're coming up to the end of the article now. Miss Owens, in comments that angered her critics, told Tucker Carlson viewers that the 2 biggest race cases of the last year were George Floyd and Carl Rittenhouse, never actually produced a single piece of evidence pointing to race. Right. She said that Minneapolis officer Derek Chauvin did not use racial language before kneeling on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes in May 2020, apparently ignoring the fact that Chauvin was convicted of murder for acting disproportionately during arrest. Again, this is completely irrelevant. Derek Chauvin, for the sake of argument, I'm not going to go into this. Let's say he's a murderer. He hated George Floyd and he wanted to murder him. He took advantage of the situation. He opportunistically knelt on this guy's neck in order to murder him, and that therefore he was convicted of murder, and he was acting disproportionately during the arrest. That does not prove racism. There are lots of reasons why Chauvin might not have liked George Floyd other than race. I've never seen any evidence that Chauvin was racist towards any other black people, either in his job or in his private life. No evidence has ever been brought to my attention. I could be wrong. I'd love to see some evidence of this claim, because honestly, so much of political discourse has been informed by this death, by the death of George Floyd. Since May 2020, it's all the entire election and everything since then, was making this case about race when I never saw any evidence to support that. And indeed, this article, the only thing they can offer as evidence of the fact that it was about race is to say that Chauvin was convicted of murder. Are all interracial murders racist? Good question. I'd love to have an answer for that question. And does it go both ways? The black man's death was meanwhile seen as another injustice for black Americans in the face of the US criminal justice system, and led to a summer of protests across the US and the world. Indeed it did. Miss Owens went on to allege that a racial narrative was extracted from the trial of Mr. Rittenhouse by the left, and that the issue of race didn't matter because his victims were white. Well, there you go. How dare she say such a ludicrous thing as that? Oh, just because this white kid killed two white people. The comments appeared to ignore the fact that the teenager had travelled from Illinois. He crossed state lines. He travelled from Illinois to Wisconsin with a rifle to defend himself from anti-racism protesters, as alleged in court last week when he was acquitted. The riots that he was at the time were anti-racism protests. Therefore, it was about race, according to the article. Miss Owens, this is the final line from this article. Let's leave it here. Miss Owens is well known for making controversial statements. Yeah. That's true. I mean, that's not inaccurate. Like I said, not everything in this article is a lie. A lot of these sentences are factually true. I think this really does speak to what this article is actually about. And it's not about crime statistics. It's not about race. This is an article about what is okay to say and what is not okay to say. This is an article about what happens if you make these kinds of claims. Make anyone reading this article think twice about bringing up these kinds of issues. And it's so depressing that this is the level of discourse that we can have about these topics. It's extremely infantile and lacking any intellectual rigor, any honesty. It's all of it. Like, most of the words in this article are dedicated to making you, the reader, understand that many people were angry at Candace Owens for saying this. No mention of whether or not it might be true or not. Again, I would hate to speculate. I would never speculate on such a thing as crime statistics. I don't even know if I'd be. I couldn't possibly look up FBI crime figures from 2017. And if I did, and if Candace Owens turned out to be telling the truth about this, she's not mistaken. If she were not mistaken and she were correct, then to say that she was correct about what she said would put me in this position of being in the firing line from all of Blue Checkmark's Twitter. Okay, well, thank you for making it to the end of the article with me and to the end of the video. But before you go, I do want to give some explanation for where I've been for the last few months. And I haven't been gone. I've just been somewhere else. A lot of my attention these days for the past few months has been focused on Women's Hour, which is a stream I've been hosting every week for the past, 12 weeks? 12 episodes we've done so far. And I invite female guests on to talk to me about news, social issues, lifestyle. We have a bit of a chat. And that's over on the Academic Agents channel. So if you are interested in watching Women's Hour live, you can join us. I'd love to see some of my own subscribers in the live chat or in the comments of those videos. So you can join us live on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And there's also this playlist that I've made. I will link in the description to this video of the last 12 episodes that I was hosting. Some of my favorites, if you're wondering, I had an interview with the lovely Alex Kashuta. That's what she looks like. If you've seen her before, she has her own channel. She has a Substack. She's a journalist, a real proper person, a real internet celebrity for me to talk to. And she had a baby recently, so I talked to her about what it's like to be a new mother. You can see I've liked my own video. That's how you get ahead on YouTube. This is a secret. You have to like your own videos. So aside from that, if you go to the link in the description, have a look at the playlist, have a listen to that one, and see what you think. And join us on Wednesday evenings to join us live to participate in the conversation. The other thing I've been working on has been an audiobook. Some of you may know that I published a romance novel last year. It's called Bastion of Stone. It's fairly short. The audio version is 3 hours and 43 minutes, and I've published it. I read it myself. I've published it as a YouTube video that is available for $3.99 through either Patreon or on this platform called Ko-fi. A lot of people, I expect, already have a Patreon account, which is why I thought I'd put it on there so you don't have to enter your card details into a new place. I should also mention there's an MP3 version. So there's two versions. It's the same book, but you can get it as an MP3 or you can watch it as a time-stamped YouTube video. Patreon, it's really supposed to be for people producing new paid content every month. For sort of monthly support. So in terms of just paying this one-off fee, it's not really set up for that. But like I said, I thought people would already have Patreon accounts, so that's why I put it on there. So you can sign up for a month, get the MP3, get the YouTube video, and then you can just stop supporting me. I don't know how else to get it to work through Patreon, and I looked. That's how I'd suggest you go about it. Or on Ko-fi, I expect not many of you have an account on there, but it's a completely legitimate website. You can, this is a different sort of support where you can give me £3 randomly, or you can pay $3.99 for, again, the audiobook on YouTube, or you can download the MP3 from there. $3.99 in Great British pounds. If you don't know, it's about $5 US, I believe. Like I said, it's almost 4 hours long. So if you want to have a short novel to read, to listen to, there's also, I should say, if you actually want to read the physical book, you can buy it as a paperback or as a Kindle PDF. I'll of course link to that as well in the description of this video. But since you're here watching me on YouTube, I figure that you're probably the kind of person who likes to listen to me and listen to my voice. Like I said, it's a romance novel, so it's not for everyone. I just thought I'd mention it since I worked so hard on it. I have a new novel coming out, so when it comes to writing and publishing and making an audiobook for my new novel, it's all going to be very professional and something that I'll feel confident in being able to promote to all of my subscribers. This is just for, I guess, for romance fans, but that doesn't just mean women. I think there are a lot of men, certainly. I know there are some in my audience who enjoy romance animes or romance visual novels, video games, that sort of thing. This would work well for you. It's not a hot and heavy book. If it were a film, it would probably be like a 12A. There's nothing too blue. There's no like explicit violence or swearing or nothing. You could probably listen to this with your kids if you really wanted to. I don't know why you would, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of what kind of book it is. It's just good, wholesome love. It's sweet. I tried to write something like an innocent, sweet love story. And if you go to the Amazon link in the description, you can read the synopsis. I designed the cover myself, by the way. Have a look at that. And you read the blurb. You can read the first chapter or so as a free sample if you want to see just what kind of book it is. If you want to see if I'm any good at writing, go ahead. I've gone on for long enough now, so I'll just say thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your patience. waiting for me to come back. I don't know when I'm gonna next be able to return to making regular videos. Maybe never. Sorry. If you don't know already, I have a small child and I have another baby on the way, due in February. You can follow me on Twitter, where I'm pretty I'm pretty regular in tweeting, getting into conversations and all that, and then you'll hear updates about the pregnancy and the baby when she arrives. Thank you very much, and I hope I'll see you again soon, wherever. Don't know where, don't know when.